Good evening. My name is Maarten van Hinte. Welcome to the Afrovibes Festival here in the Balie for this conversation. This year, the Afrovibes Festival has a special focus on artists from Northern Africa and from the North African diaspora. And the central theme of the festival this year is belonging. Now, that's an interesting combination because some people don't see North African countries necessarily as belonging to Africa, even though they are located on the African continent. Belonging in general is a complicated concept. When it pertains to identity particularly. And it's also a political one. Who are we and where do we belong? I will speak about this in the coming hour with three very special artists and thinkers whose work navigates questions of identity and belonging. So, Hamdi Didri, Khadija Almorabit, and Samira Arawi. And I'm going to start, Khadija, with you. You grew up in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. You studied logic and metaphysics at the University of Amsterdam. You teach, you work at the University of Leiden. Your parents are from Morocco, specifically they are Imasihen, from the village of Beni Chikar. So let's start by telling us, for those who don't know, where is Beni Chikar?
Oh, Beni Chikar is in the northern part of Morocco. It's called Nador. The city, actually, yeah. And then the northeast of Morocco, which is part of the Rif. That's where it's situated. It is next to the coast. So you have a mountainous region, but you also have the sea. And you have still a Spanish exclave called Melilla, or Mrich, as we say in Rifian Tamazight. Which is Spain, actually, in Morocco. So some say it's still colonized, like Ceuta is another part of it. So we are very influenced by the Spanish colonization in history. So my Tamazight, when I speak it, there are some Spanish words in there also. And I was born in Amsterdam. I think you said Rotterdam, if I didn't.
I thought you grew up in Rotterdam, but it's Amsterdam. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's Amsterdam. Yeah, you can hear that when I speak Dutch. Not that there's anything wrong with Rotterdam. It's an awesome city. So my roots are there. I used to go with my parents on vacation and go to the village of my grandmother. My parents taught me Tamazight because my dad used to yell at us, at me and my brothers, if we spoke Dutch at home. And he was like, yeah, did you become Dutch people? Speak your mother tongue, Tamazight. And I used to not like that, but then I got older and I really appreciated it.
But he really did speak Tamazight. He didn't just yell at you in Tamazight.
No, he yelled in Tamazight. He spoke in Tamazight. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you grew up with the language.
Yeah, the language, the culture, the stories. Also, a lot of generational trauma because of colonization and things that happened regarding to migration and very recognizable stuff. Anyone who is part of the diaspora or may have a history of colonization.
And so I said you're a philosopher. You studied philosophy. You're also a poet. You write in Tamazight.
Yeah,
right?
I do. Haven't done it in a long time, but yes.
And you made a documentary about going back.
Yeah.
Now I read. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that you went back after 20 years you didn't go for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't go for a very long time because I was fed up with certain things and I had some issues with my dad also, like his way of thinking, and got some, every time you go to Morocco and then I do understand that people want to have other possibilities and then you'll be at your parents' house, and then somebody comes to ask for your hand in marriage, and and then it's like, oh, but he's a good person, and then you have family, like, why not? And I'm like, leave me alone, I'm young, don't want to. So I was a bit fed up with that.
Yeah.
But and then I didn't go for 20 years.
But so. I mean, you identify clearly as being from there. It's your culture, as you grew up with it.
Yeah.
Do you belong? If I talk about sense of belonging, what would be your sense of belonging in terms of Tamazight and the culture there? and the culture here?
Yeah, well, I think people are a mosaic of identities. Nobody is a superficial identity of one. Also, your positionality. And first of all, if I relate to the Amazigh identity, first of all, I'm African because I belong to the continent. Morocco is on the continent. Amazigh, and then specifically Riffian, because in Amazigh identity and people, you also have a big diversity. And also, because my roots are in Etishad or Benishikar. I also did write the text for a program for Afrovibes about a Riffian singer called Mimoun Sidouane, who was very famous in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and very well, the first generation knows a lot about her, the second, third, not so much. Also because of the style of singing was a very high note. So yeah, that's one way I try to connect to my Amazigh roots and also bring it to a broader public, more Dutch public also, because the songs are in Tamazight, specifically the Riffian Tamazight, but the text around it, talking about the essence of what the songs are about and the life of Mimoun Sidouane, and also the Riffian identity, are in Dutch.
Okay, so I mean, your sense of belonging is kind of multi-layered.
Yeah, multi-layered, because I'm also an Amsterdammer. If you ask me, do you feel Dutch or an Amsterdammer? I'm more an Amsterdammer. But when I go to a certain place, so it really depends on the place, the time, the context. But I do feel more an Amsterdammer and the Riffian, Tamazight, African.
As an identity, you know?
Yes, exactly. And also I have Amazigh tattoos. So my grandmother, normally we have a tradition that the women are tattooed in their face and also on their body. And also because during colonization, the French said that it was a barbaric thing to do. So I was decolonizing the skin by adding Amazigh tattoos, which are African tattoos also. Yeah.
And Hamdi, you grew up in Tunis, in Montrouge, which is a neighborhood in Tunis, right?
Yeah.
That's where you started dancing, in the streets essentially with hip hop dance.
Yeah.
And then you moved on. You were danced with the Cybèle Ballet Théâtre, and then you went to France and danced in different contexts and trained in different contexts, work in different contexts. Now you've been. I mean, this was in 2010, and now you're in Montpellier. You're based in Montpellier. As a choreographer, and you're performing in the festival, so you're going to leave us before the end of this hour because you have to get ready to perform.
Yeah.
So thank you already for just being here now.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
But you've been sort of living and working in France for 10 years now, right? So, and your work is very much about Tunis, about your neighborhood, about your family, about the people you grew up in, the world you grew up in. So, and someone wrote about your work that it sort of moves between deux rives, two coasts. Is that how you experience it yourself? As it feels for you as well as that you move between two coasts, between Africa and Europe?
Yeah. Now, first of all, just to hear what my friend he just said is also for me discovery, because it's good to have many opinions from different positions, and it's very inspiring. So thank you. I discover things. How to say, Tunis and Montpellier. For me, it's right now is I decide to be a nomad, like as much as I can. Especially every year is beyond borders, like go beyond borders, or somehow like this idea of citizen of the world. But it's not only the world itself, it's like really to keep on moving as much as I can. It was a choice, because I started in Tunis, in the capital of Tunisia, and the neighborhood is Red Mountain or Red Hill, Montrouge. Is not easy as a boy or a man to just say dancing. And what is your real job? It is dancing. But what is really your job? It is dancing. And it was a big fight since 2000 actually. But as I fell in love with dancing, I stopped my education and I went to the streets with all its good and bad and raw ways. But when I had to find work with dancing and also convince my father that he was completely against it and he was raw. It was his way to show love, because it's not just about being soft and showing love easily. It was always tough with his education. So I understood completely, and I tried to convince him in my way. And my mother, that doesn't understand anything in what I do and keeps supporting from the beginning to the end. I don't know how. And this, to start where I'm from Tunisia, North Africa, the Mother Earth. And especially my country, it is my mother and my father. My mother, and I said it yesterday in Utrecht, and I think it's every time with me, it is my country. Like the first, let's say the land of my country is the hard bread that my mom collects since I was young from all the streets of Tunis to sell it and to sell it and make money and to help me grow, me and my brothers, and to make a family. That's the land. And the second is my father, and I have the same shape of his arms. And he's not here anymore, so when I dance, it's this is my country, actually, right now, especially in 2024. And when I say this, I'm happy, and I'm boiling at the same time, because I feel like we're belonging to Africa, to Tunisia, but especially to the woman that she's the real artist of my life, actually. So it's another country without passport, without visa, without differences, without colors, without any difference of sex or ages or generation. So I will tell you honestly, I don't know from where I am, but at the same time I say that, my country, except Tunisia and Africa, is my mom, and my father is not here anymore. So and I think
and your performances are very much also about like you made performances about your father, about your mother. So you carry their stories across borders.
It's a long story. I try to make a recap out of that, because when I was almost close to convince him and to make him proud, he understood, but he was half, let's say, conscious because of his tumor sickness, and he passed away. So I had to prove for him somehow. To prove for him somehow that dancing is also work, and it's fun. It's work. It was for me, for my father, it was like a hip hop battle between my father and myself, and also Tunisia as a country at that period, 20 years ago. Now it's a little bit better. To also say that art is also work like any other work. So and I create a piece from his memories when I was young in a factory, because he was a house painter. And from all the studies that I did in Tunisia and then in France that make for me another education and save my life somehow. So I got the chance to, thanks to breaking or dancing in general, to study in school to gain some money, but I fell in love with the dancing and I wanted to study it abroad. And since then I was like, for the people in Tunisia, like in my age, in my generation and others that had no chance, every time that I have holidays, I go back and I try to teach before I forget the knowledge that I have. And it was in between, organically between two countries, and then more. So I wrote this piece inspired from his gestures. And I was learning hip hop, all the techniques of dance. I wanted to be the best dancer somehow. It was selfish a little bit. But when I lost him, I wanted to focus a little bit on him and give him something back and find him. And thanks to this small piece, all my dance went to the worker, labor, gesture dance. And the sense was there. I found the sense there. How to treat dancing like really sculpting the movement, like really working on the movement. Since then, it's a new adventure. So it's raw. He was tough. And thankfully, my mother was there. So it's a good balance, because she's more tough, but in a very soft way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But so your entry in dancing was hip hop.
yeah, still.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
And if we when you said nomad and we talked to belonging, do you feel you belong in hip hop? Is hip hop a space where you feel belonging?
Yeah, that's. I think that's what I say always. Everybody here, and everyone on the Mother Earth, I think, if you go deeper into hip hop culture, is not just a dance that is cute or violent. There is a lot of knowledge there. That the poetry is, you can see it in rapping or MCing. The scratching of the DJ is the same. There is a lot. That if you see all the elements of hip hop, graffiti, DJing, MCing, dancing, all the elements, you can find a lot of links between this and science and many things that's making the world. But I can see since I grew up, I'm not a philosopher or someone that knows really what is happening. I like to be student all my life. And I see that hip hop, it is really the treasure somehow. It's very important. We are all, even when you don't do hip hop dance, humbly I say it, we are, because there is a lot there. I think it's a big treasure. So yeah, I don't know if I really answered the question.
Yeah, you really did, actually.
Yeah, it's I don't belong. It's actually,
it's just what you are.
Yeah,
in a way. It's a state of being.
What you're doing. Yeah, speaking is emceeing, is talking, is dancing, is moving, is the body expression, is cooking the movement, cooking the groove. Cooking is so social as well because it smells good here.
Amira, can you relate to that? I mean, you as a dancer, you're a dancer, you're a choreographer, you're a teacher as well. You're a theater maker. You started with hip hop and urban dance. Can you tell us a bit about how you entered the dance?
Yeah, I entered the dance. I saw actually on MTV that there was a breakdancer that was rehearsing in the hallway of our. We had a huge flat where we were living, and that really inspired me that you don't need a dance school to learn. So that's how I entered. And I looked up where the b-boys train, and it was in the mall, etc., etc. And
in Rotterdam, because
this is Delft. This is Delft, but in Delft it is connecting the scene of the Hague and Rotterdam actually. And I think a few of the older generation b-boys saw me, and they started taking me to their training spots. And they always pushed me to do my own thing. So they never taught me their moves, but they taught me the mentality. And I think back then I was annoyed because I also wanted to do a freeze. But until I got older, I understood what they were processing. And I think they saw something I didn't see before. And now I'm seeing what they saw, and I'm discovering it. And for me, hip-hop is really about feeling what the events in our lives do to our body and to our mental health, feeling, and then taking the chance to respond to it and to recreate that narrative. So that's what I try to do through my dancing as well, to interpret and then reinterpret the information. And it's a chance for me as a theater creator to, I think everybody in the audience wants to give art a chance and a chance to understand what's going on. And that's a very powerful way, I think, without having to use words, to actually say to someone, just sit down, let me talk for an hour, and then respond to it. And that's something that, especially in these times, people don't do a lot. They don't sit down and listen. They're like already getting ready to respond. And for me, that's the most powerful thing that I own as a dancer at this moment, or a theater creator. Yeah.
True.
And you started your vocabulary with hip hop and wanting to break, but having to do other things because they weren't teaching you all the right moves that you wanted to learn. But so you entered into voguing, whacking, actually all these different club styles. When did you feel you wanted to make a move into theater and actually trying to develop storytelling with your dance?
I always felt the need to have a storytelling because, like, I did battles, but then the 30-second round it goes by so fast, you know. It's impossible almost. You can do it through social media videos, but then and I wanted to go into theater. I did work with Lloyd Marengo a lot, and so he's a theater creator in the Netherlands. And then I was doing auditions, but there was like mostly perspectives that I was against. I thought it was too one-sided stories, and I really missed the other perspective. So I went on and did it myself, and I actually found a lot of people who had the same mentality of we're just gonna do it no matter what. And I think I created really authentic ways of moving, but also mentality of approaching subjects in that way, in that manner, actually. Yeah.
And now you're exploring other forms. You're working on flamenco as a form you find interesting. You went to Morocco earlier this year to study new forms, new styles. What is intriguing you in these African and Spanish African styles?
It's how oppression translates to the body, but also the strength that people show. I think if we are talking about oppression, you talk about strength and people not letting go of their true authenticity. And especially with flamenco, we've noticed it's quite tough because in flamenco there's a hierarchy, there's loyalty towards people, and I come from hip hop where it's more. To me personal, I don't experience that hierarchy. You know, if you have to show on the floor, and that's based on that you get your respect or not. It's not because your family has a certain name or. So I'm really diving into it because there's so many untold stories, so many untold narratives. There's a big part of flamenco that's rooted in slavery, actually, Spain and the slavery. There's the Moors who came from North Africa into Spain, which and then that's where the base of Andalusian culture, which is the base also a lot, like it's not the base, but it's a big part of flamenco culture and styles, and the Arabic ways of making music, and it's something that's being denied, and it's something that's not getting a stage, and it's by purpose not getting a stage, and it's very painful. So that gives more energy and power to dive into it and to be very loud about it. Yeah.
So if I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I can, so it's in a way we're talking about belonging and feeling, and for you, actually, the sense of battling oppression is something which connects you to styles, to forms, to cultures. So the belonging, the connection you feel has to do with oppression and battling and dealing with oppression.
I think that people battling oppression is because they battle that. It's unjustified how they're getting treated, and they're being actually treated like they don't belong there. For example, the Amazigh, like they don't belong there, even though they're the original people, the original culture. So for me to discover that is to discover, the sense of belonging. It goes hand in hand for me. Yeah.
So I know at the time you probably weren't thinking like this, but when you made your first steps. Dancing, breaking, when you entered hip-hop culture.
Yeah.
Do you think in a way that played into it as well, that you felt that this was a space where you could express how you felt oppression in your situation as young as you were in the framework of Delft and Netherlands?
Yeah, so definitely because especially in breaking and hip-hop, you don't bring your privilege to the floor. You bring your moves and your style and your authenticity, musicality, etc. And it's very different from the classical dance schools where a lot else matters. The parents, if they have a car to bring you to class, if they have, all those things. And to every b-boy knows you don't bring new clothes to the training because it will get, it won't survive. So that was for me, coming from poverty, coming from not having parents who would bring me, that was. It didn't matter on the floor. All those things that had a disadvantage in school and other parts of my life, it didn't matter on the dance floor. Just what I could bring to the floor. So in that sense, it really also gave me strength and gave me, in that sense, a sense of belonging, because all those other things didn't matter. What I did on the floor mattered, and that was something that was in my power. What I did in the floor. So.
So
Yeah.
if I can quote old school MC Rakim, it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at.
I guess, yes, it's a good one.
I have another quote. This is from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a little longer than Rakim's quote. But okay. The socio-historical and geopolitical periphery of colonialism, post-colonialism, and neo-colonialism is what eventually led me to being born in the Netherlands. It is the force that in part positioned me, and in a sense, all of us, where I am today. So looking at this quote and hearing what Amira says, and do you recognize the reflection of your quote in what they're in their stories?
Yes, absolutely. I totally can relate to many aspects that have been said by Amira and Hamdi. You made me a bit emotional when you started talking about your parents, because there is a lot of connection there that is not only a connection directly, but also the people that came before you, which all of us are a product from. And all the specific context and situations and things that happened in the world or a specific region, that has an effect that eventually you came into being. And all these ancestors that you carry with you and your direct parents who also have been through a lot, and also this history of, like I see it through an intersectional lens, that there are many layers to it and many things happening. I do feel like I recognize the sense of how you both have put it into movement, like dance, and expressing it that way, and that there are many ways of expressing it. So I learned also some things from you both today regarding to dance, because the dance and the movement I have is from, what I learned from my culture, is the it's a bit orientalized, the belly dance, but you have like the belly dance that my mother, my aunts, my grandmother all did in like coming together and having a lijstrommel. I don't know how you say this in, we call it an edjoen in Temmenzicht. And then at the same time, you just have your poetry, your rhymes. Sometimes they just, out of the top of their head, come up with some rhymes. And if there's somebody there, which is an enemy of you or has done something to hurt you, you can like diss them right there, And it's a very fun way to express a certain culture. And I do carry that with me. I do recognize how important dance and movement is, and this history of colonialism and coloniality, which is still the case.
So if taking this long line of history and the whole idea, I mentioned it earlier on that some people say, okay, is Northern Africa, isn't it more the Middle East, or is it Arab, or is it, that would be, in this reasoning, of course, a completely colonial concept, because it's dividing something where there is no division.
Yeah, the idea of, as for example, Middle East, North African, is a colonial concept. This is not a thing that you can say, well, but there are people who deem themselves Arab who are North African. There's a difference between Arabization and being Arab. And MENA is literally a colonial construct, which has a very big history. I can't delve into it now, because otherwise I will take all the speaking time away from also Hamdi and Amira. I don't want to do that. But it's just not an argument that you can defend with certain facts, and you cannot defend it also through scientific facts. You can't defend it through, like, race is a construct. We all know that. We're all one part of the human race, but you can do research regarding to where people have, hoe zeg je dat, a verwantschap, a more
relationship,
a closer or further relationship. Eventually, all people are related because we are all actually from Africa. We have a black oermoeder, as they say, where we come from. This is scientifically proven also. So and then if you look at North Africa, just the genetic makeup. shows us that there is, regarding to, if you can say, let's see if people then have a genetic relevance to people that we deem Arab, let's say from the Arabian Peninsula, the amount of relatedness of, for example, a Moroccan, which is, further west part of West Africa, is in percentages the same as a white Dutch person in the Netherlands. You can look this up. I didn't make it up. It's just literally genetic scientific research. And again, race does not exist. It's a construct, but you can look at haplogroups, that parts of DNA, to show you that certain people have more relatedness to certain regions. That's the only thing it says. It doesn't say that you are a different human species or anything. That doesn't exist. So just having these kind of facts and arguments, one cannot hold the idea that then North Africa is part of the Middle East. And again, also, what is the Middle East? Who has decided to call it the Middle East? The middle of the East of what exactly? Which is a very Eurocentric way of looking at it. So there are different things at play here. Colonialism, colonial thinking is at play, and also, what's it called again in English? Arabization is at play, Arab supremacist thinking is at play, and these are things that we got to rid ourselves of, because it's literally not something that is based in fact.
Yeah.
So it's North Africa is part of Africa, and then you have this Hegelian colonial divide, because Hegel was a philosopher of a certain century, and then, like, he was saying that a people is civilized. I'm just giving you the short version. You can, look this all up. People are civilized when they have a history. And he deemed the part, sub-Saharan of Africa, was not civilized because they do not have a history. But the northern part has a history because we have, of course, Egypt, so how could they not be civilized? Look at what they built, the pyramids and everything, and this idea is a very racist colonial idea that has led to not only the scramble of Africa, like the 1885 divide of Africa in pieces for the European powers, but also this idea of how to dehumanize a people by this thinking. So it's not only an issue of, you can't even argue that it is the case that the northern part of Africa isn't part of Africa because of it being Arab, which it is not. It is Arabized. And all due respect to people who do identify themselves as Arab, that is possible, but you can't put individual identification on a whole continent. And the second thing is this colonial residue, this specter, this Hegel, who has deemed sub-Saharan Africa as Black Africa, as non-civilized Africa. It's a problematic idea to keep this, and we have to decolonize our thinking.
So yeah.
Thank you.
So Hegel is with an H. Is hip hop the decolonizing force, the anti-Hegel?
Yeah, why not? Because there are so many. Yeah, there are so. I think my.
Yeah.
True. Yes. Is one thing that make me fall in love with this culture. It's not even a decision. It's the basic is each one, reach one, teach one. So let's say the also belonging, when you talk about from where you belong, for me, I think it's a blessing. I'm not talking even about the dance, like the breaking the chain as well. When you go to the floor, it's between you and the Mother Earth. Everything that I approach now in a very deep way, it's related to Mother or something like close to the woman in general. And for me, it's very imperfect thinking. I'm proud of that because I feel like I'm more and more free. I try to not stay in my brain, but think out loud. And thank you for allowing me to think that. I hope this is resonate, and if not, I invite you after to maybe dance with me, or maybe one day if I have time to be in Amsterdam again, I can bring my friends and cook for you. or do something. But yeah, it's like for me, hip hop. That's what makes me now speak like this. Is this freedom thing, like non-perfect rhyming, like going into the moment. Now I react. I didn't invent anything. There is a reason that this table, this cipher, the zero, start from the zero and back to the zero. It's thanks to Khadija approach and her opinion. Maybe you are different. Maybe you have common points. Same with Amira and everyone here. There is a reason that this has happened. Afrovibes Festival makes it, but it's also this what makes me speak like this. And it's unique every time. I build an opinion. But back to this, I start from hip-hop. And after all the experience and traveling and seeing the opinions and the differences, William Petit, the light designer part of my company, Chantier Public, he told me, why, since 10 years, why you are not really trying to make the link between both what's the so-called contemporary dance and hip-hop. Like really assume it more and go deep, not mixing, but cook it together. Since then, it's so obvious for me because I'm invited to Amsterdam to perform a piece, and I'm honored with that. And it's really nice because I can show one angle of this. But the idea is also, especially what's special about this time for me in Afrovibes, we can talk hip-hop and art. I don't feel like there is some bourgeoisie here, if I may say, because sometimes, as I'm from Tunisia, belonging, we like harissa. So when we talk, it's a little bit spicy sometimes.
Spicy is good.
Yeah. And but the thing with hip-hop, or breaking and b-boying, b-girl, b-boy, is being, is be, not do, be. It's different. I don't know if this is also you understand or you.
Very clear.
Is between doing and being is different. So it's easy for me to go to any country. That's what makes me a little bit not maybe feeling all this pressure sometimes. I'm in and out. It's good to get involved, get into it, you know? When it's in the hip hop, you call someone, you go to a country, you find someone that's dressed or going to the record store. Said, oh, you're a b-boy or b-girl. Hi. And he talked to you in any language. You just go to put some sound box and just dance for 10 minutes. You sweat together. And then you eat something. And then you became brothers or sisters from another mothers. And then you can invite him and invite her to your country and you become friends. It's a country somehow. It's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I think this was a blessing. Somehow I was lucky to be in the street and to see this kind of crazy move. I wanted to seduce people with movement, and then became my life somehow. So yeah, and Africa, hip hop. If you go deeper, Africa, we grew up, all of us, I think, Morocco or North African in general, and I mean, with the rhythm in our life, the repetition, the housekeepers, the construction, and everything we hear. There is rhythm there, so there's drums. Africa, drums, music, clubs, celebration, belly dance, all this stuff. It's very large. So yeah, for me, this Fatma Sessi, my mother, and my father, because he exists, because she exists. This is Tunisia, and hip hop in Africa. It's like it makes me forget all the flags right now, especially in 24.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to be here. So because I can go more spicy without olive oil. So
can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Like you have certain ways of dancing in breakdancing, which you can trace back to certain African dance. Not only specifically North African, because like in Morocco we have like this circus, and you have these artists, these circus artists doing, I don't know, handstands and many other different movements. But also, I don't know which country it's from, and this is more the southern part of Africa. I really forgot. There you have this festival where they dress up, and then there is this person wearing this costume with many layers and a spike, and then just goes on the spike and keeps twirling and twirling and twirling. Maybe you've seen it social media or anything, but other forms of dance which are on the continent, of course. Like Africa is not a country, it is a country, but the different countries, the different cultures, the different movements, there's many things that you can relate or trace back to that are taking place in hip-hop. Like music styles. You know, jazz is not only jazz because it is jazz, but there are elements to it which you can trace back to Africa again.
And I mean, to go back to cooking,
Yeah.
because it's cooking, it's putting everything in.
It's good, yes.
Are there any limits in cooking? Are there ingredients? Okay, but you can't touch that ingredient.
Sometimes it gets burnt, but then you gotta try again.
Slow cooking.
Yeah, slow cooking makes everything come together. Maybe.
Yeah,
Okay,
it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah.
Slow cooking makes, and it's about cooking as well. It's like with this to hip hop, cooking is also a country. It's like when you put food between two person different, the link is there. Like it's crazy. I feel like food is like the most valuable passport and visa somehow.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's eat, let's share. We call it in Tunisia, ماء وملح, water and salt. And once this is shared, it's not a pragmatic, very perfect contract or a paper. It's something if you cheat on, it's in your skin. It's spiritual. It's not so... Yeah, I can go more because I can take a long flight, but it's...
but cheating, it's also about authenticity. I have another quote from KRS-One, this one, and I'll give it to you. I'd like to have a reaction from you from it. KRS-One, hip-hop is the pursuit of one's authentic being through the arts. It's not a physical thing, it's an attitude. Do you recognize that?
Word.
Yeah, I think definitely when you go to the floor, it's also very easy to lose yourself in what's the hype or anything. And I think you're a good dancer when you're being authentic and when you lose yourself in that. Like then it doesn't matter if your technique is good as long as you lose yourself. And I think by watching that, you go on the same trip. And it's talking about cooking, it's something we say also, you know, in the hip hop vocabulary, like we're cooking up, we're cooking now. And it's like putting things in process and see where it goes and trusting that your like unconsciousness is you know, trusting on that it will land somewhere. Even though I especially in a battle, I think sometimes you do stuff you didn't even know you could do or anything. You're like, whoa, and you're surprised in that moment, and it's because you've actually been cooking for so long on the thought, on the idea of preparing your fine muscles on the movement, and then all of a sudden you taste it and like, oh, this is actually really good, like something like that. Yeah, so it's very symbolic actually for the way of, I think, long-term thinking. Yeah, it's short-term in a way, you do it on the floor, but it's also building something for longer, and that's what you do when you go to a jam, when you enter a cipher. It's always this long-term thinking of movement, of what can you add to the culture, what can you take out of it, etc.
What inspiration, what you bring to the table. We talk also about hip-hop, how to contribute, how to bring something to the table, not only consume but give and take.
And like specifically within the framework of cipher and hip-hop culture, it's clear you're an up-and-coming choreographer and dancer. You're moving into the formal Dutch, Western European theater world. How does that work there? Are you able to create that kind of space for yourself to keep that authenticity and make your work stick to that, or is it a...
Yeah, it's searching, because then also if you want to enter, it's very easy to get a certain label. I remember one of my first solo, and it was, you saw it actually, Nadia. It's about the loss of my mother when I was younger, and actually like both parents. And then I got my first review of the Volkskrant, and it was about the oppressed Muslim lady, you know. And it's a universal thing. Everybody loses someone at a certain point in life that they love very much, or have to let go of something. So that's something I struggle with, but also to create something without and perceive myself as somebody who's worth the space, and not somebody who has to stay in a position, like, oh, I have to fight for my freedom, I have to fight and represent the stereotype, or that I can be something else. But then it's very difficult because also what I wear or what I don't wear, it becomes like, oh, you took off the hijab, yes, that's very, very inspiring or something, you know. And it's not at all about that. So I created last summer a piece about Majnoon. So it actually, Majnoon means the crazy one, and it's about Layla and Majnoon, and I wanted to be the crazy one, so I put like a lot of clothes, and I stand in the wind, and there's like a lot of wind blowing through the clothing, and it got interpreted, as a hijab, and that I was wearing the hijab, and etc. So for me, it's very hard to find the sweet spot. Am I that, or am I gonna respond to that at all, or not at all, or like how close am I tied to that image and stereotype of the Muslim woman freeing herself, you know. And it's a very I think my family is very against me dancing, and it's not because of because they think a type of way of dancing, but they know that Western people look at women in a type of way. In the culture I'm from in Iraq, if they see a woman carry a heavy bag on the street, men run to help her. It's very nicer. And in the time before war, they were much like with female rights. It was much further than we're here. So my family was very shocked by how women get sexualized here in public. So they're scared from that perspective. But then from a Western perspective, I'm the oppressed woman and that is not having freedom, etc., etc. So it's hard for me. Like, and am I the one who can change that perspective? I'm not sure yet. I'm still in search for that. It's still research.
But thankfully, you're not alone. I mean, there are more people working from a different vision of what performing is and what theater is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, which is very inspiring. And I also hope to thank you. Break a leg.
Yeah.
I also hope to do that with flamenco, because I feel that with flamenco there's a common understanding of what it is, and I feel like because of that, it's an entry of what is expected from it.
Yeah.
And that if you're with flamenco, for example, being like emotional is normal. It's what people expect from it. So it's also a way of entering this state of mind, and hopefully I can change some perspectives from that. But it's finger crossed, you know. Like I said, sometimes I make a performance and then I read a review and I get so disappointed as well. So,
but you're not just a performer; you're a teacher as well.
Yeah.
Right? So is this part of your idea of teaching, that you want to create space where honest, authentic expression can happen?
Yeah, definitely. I teach mostly children with disability and children who came new to the Netherlands. And it's giving them the space that I didn't have, most of all, and the space I needed as a child, where the end goal is not as important as the process. That the process is more important. And I noticed like a lot of children children smell the problems and emotions that their parents have and they capture it in their body because they don't have the vocabulary yet to express that they are worried about their parents, but they are. And I find my most important job as a teacher is that they know that as long as they're with me, they can express that, and we find ways and other languages to express that. Yeah.
And you're also very involved. You're academic, of course. That's your. But you do a lot of work, empowerment work, work with different organizations. Is your motive connected to what she's saying, creating a space for authenticity or for open expression?
Yeah, exactly. And also the rebellious Riffian spirit that's within me. Riffians have always rebelled against any, like the Amazigh, like any marginalization or domination, be it colonial European powers or the Arab domination. I do that from a place of love. Like James Baldwin said, like... I don't know exactly the same quote, and he says something like, love has never been a popular movement, and I just want to change something in the world. And I think the best way to do it is by as authentically as you can, like Toni Morrison said, that when you get to a certain place where there is some power, there is some influence that you can have, you need to help someone else. and also knowing how it is to struggle. I mean, I come from a poor background also. My dad was a worker. They call it gastarbeider in Dutch, but I don't think the guest part was something that he could relate to, because he was never treated like an actual guest, as many migrants do. So it comes from a place of trying to be in this world as authentically as I can, and hopefully help in a way and set something straight. Yeah.
On this note, I mean, opening up, I want to open up the conversation for the audience.
Yeah,
as well.
can I just say one
Go ahead.
other
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
Because, I mean, we're talking about North Africa, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about how North African relate to blackness. And I just need to say something also, because next to people from North Africa who are, for example, Amazigh, let me speak from my own part of the identity, that they state that they are African. We also have internal problems, and the internal problem is that there's also a case of anti-blackness within North African communities, and I think it is very important to not delve into it a bit during this evening, because I can't say, listen, you can't uphold the MENA, it's colonial, the divide, it's colonial, etc., and not delve into this. So there is this necessity within North African societies that internal dialogue has to take place to rid us of colonial thinking, rid us of prejudice, rid ourselves of anti-black thinking, rid ourselves of colorism. And I know there is a context, and the context is not just very superficial, that anti-blackness because anti-black, no, because there are colonial influences, and there are many, many influences that have led to this taking place within the North African societies. And I think it is very important to emphasize that this is definitely happening. There has to be dialogue, there has to be teaching within the diaspora. I know on the continent, within the countries, things are happening. They are much further there. I'm not saying it is all perfect and solved, but I know that there are things happening, and that this is a very necessary conversation that we need to have.
And within the diaspora particularly.
Especially the diaspora, but literally throughout communities and societies and countries within North Africa. Yeah, because we have a diverse of colors, a diversity of people. Amazigh are not all looking like me. I am from the northern part, where people tend to be lighter because of not being in the vicinity of the equator. The more you are around the equator, the darker you are, because the protection against the damage of the UVA, UVB rays, that is the reason why skin gets darker, right? So these things we need to educate, and we need to get the right knowledge about this, so we can rid ourselves of this backwards thinking.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Amado.
Oh, yes.
Amado.
Amado, join us.
Yes.
There's a chair.
Hello.
No.
Thank you.
Well, we're talking about identity and about issues like these. Your work very much moves around identity, visibility, recognizing. What are your reflections on what you're hearing at this table today?
Well, I had a lot today, so it was like this is really good influence. Actually has to do with my work. Like, just recognize what you said. Like, I'm Sudanese. I was born in Cairo, so I have this dual identity. Like I have also have a conservative family, so I have to speak like Sudanese, only Sudanese music, Sudanese food. So like everything has to do with my own culture at the house. Go out in the street in Cairo, like have a different identity. Like I've been seen in a different way, have a different stereotype about me. So like have to fight this. Like being somebody in your house and then outside you're somebody else. And then has to do with history. It has to do with the stereotype came like his colonial aspect as well, but also like a lot of not understanding history. So this was a kind of core of my work, like just fighting myself as a black Arab, if I can say that, because I live in North Africa, like in Egypt, and even in Egypt we have identity problem. And even in Sudan, we don't have a clear identity for Arab or black. We don't know even if we're black or not. Like, we get our independence in 1956, but actually it's supposed to be in 1954. So we spent 2 years in parliament deciding if we're Arab or not, you know. So we didn't know that, like, until today, that, like, how black we are, you know. So this is a really big issue that we have in Sudan. Also, we have that in Egypt as well. So just bringing the idea of belonging, you know, or you are North African, because we can say, even in Egypt, they didn't say that North African, they say like the Mediterranean. So it's not even has to do with Africa.
Yeah.
Not the word Africa doesn't exist in the dictionary in Egypt, you know. So it's like, oh, we're Mediterranean, we're not African, we're not black, but we're not Arab. So okay, so where you from? You know, this is a good question to ask. And in Egypt now we have also identity problem, because recently after the revolution, they decided like, okay, we recognize that we're not Arab, so we have pharaohs, and pharaohs are not Africans, and we have the same discussion again. So just having the idea of like Africa as a country, or like Africa only black people, because like not all black are African, not all African are black, you know. So we have North African, we have Amazigh, we have Tawarik, we have Bani Amir, we have like Bija, and they are not considered black, but they're Africans, you know, and also have black in South Asia. So just refining the identity on the color skin, you know, and just make it sum it into like a really small line of like the color skin, that you have that color, so you're African, you have that color, you're an Arab, you have that color, you're white, you know, and then they just have this division and all this historical colonial aspect, you know, coming from European, and even before the Muslims when it came to Africa, you know, in the like 9th century, you know, and then like divided the people like who became to Muslim. They are more like, okay, they are more like chosen ones, so you're more Arab and they're more superior, you know. And then if you're not, you know, and you still have a Christianity, you're not superior, you know. So it's colonial aspect.
Yeah.
And you still have that until today in Sudan, in Egypt as well.
So it's 8:00.
Yeah.
So I have to end the cooking session. But I think the cooking is the best metaphor. Actually, I think we cooked up a very, very interesting meal, and I want to thank you. Actually, all three of you, plus of course Hamdi, who's going to perform. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, and well, let's all go see Hamdi.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.